is what is called using algebra to solve word problems. And what we're trying to involve here is obviously we're going to have types of word problems, but we're going to set up an equation on how to solve these word problems. As I've been doing in the past here, we're not going to go through all these on the notes, but I'm going to take mostly the odd numbered problems. Now, when we're looking to solve word problems using algebra, it's a three-step, what we call a three-step process. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define our variable. And all we're doing with this is we're going to let some variable be equal to a certain topic. And I'll show you some examples of that. Second, we're going to set up an equation. We're going to solve that equation. And then finally, we got to make sure that we define our answer, or we answer exactly what the problem is asking. Let's start off with in set 1. And in set 1, it's finding two numbers. Now, number 1, it says the larger of two numbers is 4 more than the smaller number. If the sum of the numbers is 74, find the numbers. All right, so if we know what the small number is, we can find the bigger number, because the bigger number is 4 more than the smaller number. So let's start off by letting, let's let n be equal to the small number. That could be, n could be, whatever number. Now, if n represents a small number, then we would know that 4 more than that, because the bigger number is 4 more than that, let's let n plus 4 represent the bigger number. Okay? Now we know that the sum of these two is 74. So we're going to take the small number, we're going to add the larger number, and they add up to 74. Simplify the left side, so we get 2n, because 1n plus 1n is 2n, plus the 4 equals 74. Now, I'm not going to go through specifically how we're solving these, because that's been some of our past topics. Let's see, they're adding 4, so we subtract 4, we get 70, and then they're multiplying by 2, so we divide by 2, so we get 35. So n is 35. Now, what's n represent? Well, it represents the smaller number, right? So to get our bigger number, we're going to add 4 to that. So n plus 4 would be 35 plus 4, which would be 39. So our answer, the two numbers, would be 35 and 39. And we've answered what the problem was asking. Let's go to number 3. It says the larger of two numbers is 1 more than 4 times the smaller number. If the sum of the two numbers is 106, find the numbers. So again, let's define this. If we know the small number, we can get the bigger number. So let's let n be equal to the smaller number. Now the bigger number then is 4 times is 1 more than 4 times the smaller one. So let's see, 4 times the smaller one would be 4n, and then 1 more of that, 1 more would be 4n plus 1, would represent the bigger number. So the sum of them is 106, so n plus 4n plus 1 equals 106. Simplify the left side, 4n plus 1n is 5n plus the 1 equals 106. Solve it. Let's see, they're adding 1, subtract 1. So 5n equals 105. And then finally divide by 5, because they're multiplying by 5. And we get n is 21. Now we're not done. We got to make sure we answer the problem. They want to know what the two numbers were. So the smaller number is represented by n. The smaller number is 21. Now to get 4n plus 1, we're going to take 4 times 21 and then add 1 to it, and we get 85. Now we can check these, because first of all, we can do, does 85 and 21 add up to the 106? And it does. And notice that the bigger number is 4 times this number plus 1. which would be 85. Okay, so most of these problems on the 4, number 5 are pretty much like this as we set them up. Now let's go to number 7. It says the Buffalo Bills scored 24 more than twice the number of points that the Dolphins scored. So it seems like if we know how many points the Dolphins scored, we can get the Buffalo Bills score. It says altogether the team scored 66. So let's let n represent the points that Miami scored, or the Dolphins. Now we're going to represent, in terms of n, how many of these points the Bills scored. 24 more than twice this. So twice that would be 2n. 24 more would be 2n plus 24 would be the points the Bills scored. And we know that the two of them, the two teams, add up to 66 points. So n plus 2n plus 24 equals 66. Now if we simplify that, so n plus 2n is 3n plus 24 equals 66. They're adding 24, subtract 24, so 3n is equal to 42, I guess. Divide by 3, and we get 14. So the points that the Miami Dolphins scored was 14, because that's what n represented. Now to get the points that the Bills scored, we're going to take 2 times 14, add 24 to it, and if we did that, we would get 52 points. So the points that both teams scored were 14 and 52. And notice that the sum of those would be 66. All right, let's go to the next set, which is perimeter of a rectangle, or perimeter of rectangles. Let's look at number 9. The length of a rectangle is 6 inches more than its width. So if we know the width of it, we can get the length of it. So let's let W equal the width of the rectangle. So 6 inches more than that would be, let's let W plus 6 represent the length of the rectangle. What other information do we have? If the perimeter of the rectangle is 24, find the dimensions. So what we're going to need to do is, to find perimeter, we add up all the sides. Or we double the width, and we double the length to get the perimeter. And the perimeter is 24. Okay? So that would be the same thing as taking W plus W plus W plus 6 plus W plus 6 equals the 24. Now if we solve this, remember we got to distribute the 2. So plus 2W plus 12 equals 24. And to save a little time here, we would solve this and we would get W is equal to 3. Now add 6 to that to get the length. So it'd be 9. So 3 inches and 9 inches would be the dimensions of the rectangle. Let's take a look at number 11. Similar, the length of a rectangle is 3 centimeters less than twice its width. So let's just set it up here first of all. So let W equal its width. And then 3 less than twice that. So let twice the width and 3 less than that would be the length of the rectangle. And then it says the perimeter of the rectangle is 18 centimeters. So we're going to take 2W plus twice the length, 2W minus 3, equals 18. And that's how we would set it up. Now we would distribute. So 2W plus, let's see, 2 times 2W is 4W, minus 2 times 3 is 6, equals 18. And again, to save a little time, once we solve this for W, we get W is equal to 4. And then to find the length, we'll take 2 times 4, subtract 3 from that, and we would get 5. So the dimensions of our rectangle would be 4 centimeters and 5 centimeters. Okay? All right, let's go to set 3. Now, set 3, we got to know what the differences are with these terms: consecutive numbers, consecutive even numbers, and consecutive odd numbers. Now, consecutive numbers are simply numbers that are one right after the other, like 3, 4, 5. Okay, those are consecutive numbers, one right after the other. Now, using algebra, we could represent those as x, add 1 to it, add 2 to it. Those would be consecutive numbers using algebra. Now, consecutive even numbers would be like 2, 4, 6, dot, dot, dot. Using algebra, we would have x, add 2 to it, add 2 more to it, or 4, and we can represent consecutive even numbers with algebra that way. Now, consecutive odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, dot, dot, dot. And we represent those the same way as we would represent the consecutive even numbers. Now, why would they be represented the same way? Well, it depends what they're equal to. Is going to make the difference on that. So, for example, in number 15, it says if the sum of 2 consecutive numbers is 85, so we're looking at consecutive numbers, it's 85. So let's let n be the first consecutive, and let's let n plus 1 be the second consecutive. And they add up, because it's sum, they add up to 85. So I'll have n plus 1 equals 85. And if we simplify that and solve it, we would get n equals 42. Now add 1 to that to get our next consecutive, and we get 43. So our two numbers would be 42 and 43. And notice they do add up to 85, and they're consecutive numbers. Okay, let's take a look at maybe one more, and then we'll let you try them a little bit. But let's look at number 19. Okay, at number 19, the sum of 3 consecutive odd numbers is 57. So let's let n be our first odd. Now they want consecutive odds, so we're going to add 2 to that. So n plus 2 would be our second consecutive odd. And then add 2 to that, or in other words, add 4 to that. So n plus 4 would be your third consecutive odd. So we represent the consecutive odd numbers. And then it says the sum of these is 57. So we'll add the 3 up. So n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals 57. Now if we simplify that and solve, n would be 17. Our next would be n plus 2, add 2 to that, 19. And then our third one would be n plus 4, which would be 21. So our 3 consecutive odd numbers would be 17, 19, and 21. And notice that they add up to 57, and they are consecutive odd numbers. So essentially, all these are like that. Remember, this is extremely useful notes here with setting up our consecutive or consecutive even or consecutive odds. So again, the topic here was using algebra to solve word problems.